Members, the Deputy Lord Mayor is in the chair. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, the 11th of July 2023. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and First Nations present today. The Council also acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. Now, members, I would invite you to participate in a moment of contemplation of the gravity and implications of our decision-making. I invite members to silently read the prayer as printed or reflect in a manner appropriate to their beliefs on these issues.
Almighty God, we ask your blessing on the works of the City of Adelaide, directed across its liberation, the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of this city.
Councillor Davis, I asked you to recite your prayer in silence. I regret that you have not.
I was reflecting in a manner which is appropriate to my beliefs.
I thank you for your comments. I will refer the matter to the Lord Mayor for her consideration on her return. Now, can I ask you and everyone present to stand in silence of memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Members, please be seated. Apologies and leave of absence. On leave is the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor, Dr Jane Lomax-Smith, Councillor Kouros, and I have an apology from Councillor Ho. Are there any other apologies this evening? No? Okay, let's continue. Confirmation of the minutes. Could I have someone to move that we accept the minutes of the 27th of June? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Those in favour? Carried. Deputations. We have one deputation tonight from Kathleen Muirhead-Kern, who's come to speak to us about a map of the city streets of Austin in Texas. Miss Muirhead-Kern, would you like to come forward and speak to us? You have 5 minutes allocated. Yes.
I wanted to point to that, but it's all right. Well, at least this is at the right height. Look, I'm very excited today to present, on behalf of an anonymous donor, this map which I have handed out to all the councillors a description of. It is unique, you can't say very unique, it's a unique copy of the printed map, Texas Sesquicentennial Governor's Edition map of Texas Physical Map, 1986, celebrating 150 years of independence, 1836 to 1986. Now, you'll recognise those dates as being significant to South Australia, and that's one of the reasons, as you would know if you came to the celebration today, that South Australia and Adelaide and Austin in Texas are inevitably linked, apart from the fact that they both have rivers going through them. They have lots of bats, apparently, and a nudist beach, we learned this morning. Anyway, the map is catalogued by the Library of Congress, and it celebrates our coming together in this double 150 years sesquicentenary. It was framed and glazed, and you can see how large it is, and it's got images of landforms including lakes, rivers, waterways and so on, and other regions of Texas. It was commissioned by the Texas Sesquicentennial Press in Austin and compiled by Texas artist and master cartographer John Davis as a joint effort of 4 artists. Interestingly, there was the physical map base, the eagle and Quetzalcoatl. Hands up anyone who knows what a Quetzalcoatl is, without looking it up. This is a teacher in me. Sort of. Yes, very good. It's a dinosaur. A pterosaur was the largest living creature to ever fly over the earth. And that's special to North America. And the yellow rose, of course, of Texas is also shown done by one of the artists, and the Gulf of Mexico. So it's inscribed along the right-hand side bottom border, presented to the people of South Australia from the people of Texas, and it comes to us from the estate of the late John Reginald Porter, who was the 18th Surveyor General of South Australia. Now, we don't know exactly how he came by it, but we thought that after he passed away this year, in April, that it should come to the city's archives. And as you can see here, it's signed by John Davis, the artist I mentioned before, and master cartographer. John Porter was a very great surveyor in South Australia, becoming Surveyor General I can't remember, but it's listed in the notes there. I'm not going to read through them. You'll be glad to know. In 1986, though, it's important that he accepted a transfer to the Department of Lands as Deputy Surveyor General and was instrumental in founding South Australia's Museum of Exploration, Surveying and Land Management in the old Treasury Building, Victoria Square. So after that he became Surveyor General, and he also researched and published a great deal on Colonel Light and other surveyors of South Australia. So he deserves to be celebrated in his own right. But this is one part of his collection that he made of surveying, and we believe that it came to him through his work as a surveyor all across the world, and he was a member of the FIG. Now, you won't know what that is. The International Federation of Surveyors, Fédération Internationale des Géomètres. They're called géomètres in French. So, so in that role, and others like the Royal Geographical Society of South Australia, he assisted in placing lots of commemorative plaques, such as the one at the corner of North Terrace and West Terrace, and assisted historians and historical societies. So I hope you enjoy this and have a chance to look later at it and see, sorry, I turned away, and see the inscription particularly to the people of Adelaide, which I think is very moving on this, the 40th anniversary of our sister city relationship.
Ms Muirhead-Kern, thank you very much.
That's all right.
And I did notice that you were at our civic reception this morning for the celebration. Thank you for attending.
It's all right.
And thank you for presenting this. I understand it will now go to our archivists and they will be in contact about what happens next.
Thank you. And all the provenance details are here. So, yes, and we carried it on the City Loop bus this morning between us, my friend and I, and it was
well
quite
done.
something, I can tell you. It's quite heavy, framed in glass. But I'm thrilled it's here and hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
On behalf of the Council, thank you. Now, members, petitions, we have nil petitions, and so we move to the body of the agenda with item 9, which is reports from committees. And Cadla Tiller, we only have reports from committees, so I'll take you first to 9.1, and I'm wondering if any of this may be taken in block.
Deputy Lord Mayor, can I ask that recommendation 1, item 4.1, be taken by itself, because I would like to declare a general conflict of interest.
Okay, so the best we could do would be to take 2, 3 and 4 in block. Is there agreement about that?
Apologies, Chair. I'd like to take recommendation 4 separately to the rest. Thank you.
Councillor Abraham, today the administration has just asked me, are you declaring a general conflict of interest, and is it your intention to remain in the room?
Yes, I am declaring a general conflict of interest. I do have the conflict of interest form filled out here with me. I will be staying for the discussion and the vote.
Thank you. Okay, well, in that case, unless I'm mistaken, recommendation 1 can be considered with 2 and 3. It is only 4 that we're asked to remove. May I have a mover to take 1, 2 and 3 in block? Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Davis. Those in favour?
Do I need to, sorry, Deputy Lord Mayor, do I need to declare, or I guess go into a little bit more detail about my conflict of interest?
I thought you were declaring a general conflict of interest and intending to remain in the room.
Yep. Do I need to go into any more detail?
No.
No, that's fine. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Again, those in favour of voting in block for recommendations 2, 3 and 4? 1, 2 and 3, I beg your pardon, I'm confused. 1, 2 and 3? That is carried unanimously, thank you. We move then to recommendation 4, Adelaide Aquatic Centre redevelopment, lease and licensing. Councillor Snape, are you proposing to move that? Okay, Councillor Giles is moving, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Giles, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I reserve my right.
Councillor Elliott?
No, I reserve my right.
Councillor Snape? Does anybody else wish to speak to item 4? Okay, then we will go to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I declared that carried. Yes, certainly. A division has been called.
Members, the division have been called. Please stand in favour for voting for recommendation 4.4, Adelaide Aquatic Centre, until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentrip, Councillor Giles and Councillor Abraham Zadeh. Thank you.
We now move to item 9.2, which is the recommendations of the City Planning, Development and Business Affairs Committee. There are 2 recommendations. Is it possible to take this in block, or does a member wish to separate the items? On block? Okay, could I have a mover? Councillor Abrahimzadeh, Councillor Snape. Those in favour?
Can I speak to that?
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'll be brief. I just want to congratulate the team on putting a thorough report together. I brought a motion in, I think about 10 or 12 months ago, for us to have a look at this scheme. And one of the reasons for that, Deputy Lord Mayor, was because I was getting a fair bit of feedback from local residents, particularly residents that live in older dwellings that don't have the comfort of double glazing or the more modern construction methods, which tends to block out the external noises. So I'm really keen to see what this pilot brings, but I'm also keen to see us increase that rebate, because at the moment, if we're going up to say $3,000, that wouldn't even cover an acoustic engineer's report. So I would be really keen to see that rebate increase, and really keen to see what that pilot brings.
Thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Does anyone else wish to speak to either recommendation 1 or 2? No? I will put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I declare that carried. The next item on the agenda is reports for Council, Chief Executive reports. There are none. And so we move to item 11, which is Lord Mayor's reports. We don't have one of those, but we do have a Deputy Lord Mayor report, which I'm happy to read to you, which has been prepared for me. Over the past fortnight, while acting for Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith, I've represented the Lord Mayor at a number of events, including the 50th anniversary celebration of FMG Engineering, which is, for those who know, one of Adelaide's best-known engineering firms, which has worked on some of Adelaide's most defining projects like Adelaide Oval and the Royal Adelaide Hospital. I attended the Adelaide Festival Centre 50th Anniversary Celebration Civic event. We also launched NAIDOC in the mall, and I know some councillors, Councillor Snape, Councillor Giles and Elliott were there. It was a great occasion when we unveiled the work of art by Indigenous artist Caitlin Davies-Plummer. And the artwork is in keeping with the NAIDOC Week theme of For Our Elders. We also hosted a NAIDOC morning tea here at Town Hall, and I was honoured to present to Uncle Dookie O'Loughlin the Lord Mayor's Indigenous Achievement Award for 2023. Uncle Dookie, to those who know him, has been a champion for cultural understanding and the value of Aboriginal knowledge for more than 50 years. I also attended, as some of you did with me, the Safer City quarterly conversation with SAPOL, and I attended the LGA Mayor and CEO Forum in the Barossa Valley on Friday, at which elected members gained a better understanding of the new behavioural management framework. It was a long day. And I also attended this morning the 40th anniversary of the sister city relationship between Austin and Adelaide, attended by the former Lady Mayoress Di Watson, the US Consul General Kathleen Lively, as well as staff who worked here at the City of Adelaide at the time of the signing. And I thank Councillor Davis for emceeing the event very professionally. Now, that concludes my report. Do we have any councillor reports? Oh, hang on. Apparently that needs to be moved and seconded. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Davis, Councillor Snape. Those in favour? Those against? That's unanimous. Can we record that? Councillor reports. Do any councillors have reports they wish to make? Councillor Noon?
Yes, I wish to report that on Saturday, the 1st of July, I represent the Lord Mayor at the Botanic Gardens and Resonate event hosted by the Illuminant creative directors and chair of the Botanic Gardens Board. The light circles that return to the Botanic Gardens this year really do transform this iconic site and is a truly outstanding achievement. Everybody has to go. Last Friday morning I represented also the Lord Mayor where the Premier Peter Malinakis and Minister Michaels launched the South Australian Small Business Strategy 2330, which is designed to adapt, grow and succeed now into the future. There was approximately 500 people in the room representing many small and family businesses in South Australia, and quite a few of our ratepayers were there. This strategy outlines how the state government policies and programs will support and empower owners to take their business to new heights. It was a fantastic event, and I applaud Minister Michaels for initiating and establishing the inaugural Office of Small and Family Business in a very tight timeline, which is actually located in the city. At the time, the energy and resources that the Minister and her team have put into developing this strategy, including the 20+ industry roundtables, one of which I was involved with personally, that came together across South Australia that informed this strategy. There are 20 initiatives within 6 themes that also align with what we're trying to achieve. I will be proposing that the City of Adelaide collaborate with the State Government on another fabulous program which supports our ratepayers who own small and family businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noon. Does any other councillor have anything they wish to report? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept that? Councillor Abrahimzadeh, Councillor Siebentrit. Those in favour? Carried. Next item on the agenda is 13.1, questions on notice. A question from Councillor Abrahimzadeh has been published. A reply has been given, which will be incorporated into the minutes. In keeping with practice, I won't read the response. I think we need to have a vote to accept that? No vote is necessary. Okay, we shall then move to the next item, which is 14, questions without notice.
I had a question on that question. Is that on?
Yes, you're permitted to have a follow-up question. Yes.
I'm just keen to know where we're at with the process with the sister city Athens initiative, and what the status is and where we're at, and because I've asked a few questions around this and I'm just still not clear, and I'm just wondering if somebody can just advise me where we're at, seeing there were 3 ministers that requested this, we all supported it, and I'm just keen to know what the status is. Thank you.
I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you through the Deputy Lord Mayor and the Chair. In relation to, as per the report that Council endorsed, a letter of intent has been drafted, and the intent is that Athens City will sign that. The letter of intent looks at entering discussions to create a memorandum of understanding with the City of Athens to agree what would that contain. In the past, when we've entered an MOU, that's for a fixed period of time, and at the end of which, subject to both cities, whether the relationship gets more formalised, that would happen further down the track. But at this point, it's purely a letter of intent to start working together.
Councillor Noon, that answers your question?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Snape, you had a question?
Thank you, Acting Lord Mayor. Can administration inform a chamber... can the administration give a summary of elected members and administration travel during the 2018-2022 council term? Thank you.
I think the CEO is saying to me, can the administration take that on notice? Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you. Similar sort of question to Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor. I wanted to see whether if there was any travel related to sister city relationships in the past council term.
So if I understand correctly, Councillor Snape is asking for details of travel and expenditure for all overseas travel in the previous term. Is that what you were saying? And Councillor Abrahimzadeh is asking for the travel associated with sister city relationships to be isolated. Is that correct? As a separate...
Yeah, if they can be categorised in that way, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions without notice? Councillor Snape.
Sorry, trying to press the right button there. Thank you. I circulated these to administration earlier today surrounding the Adelaide Motorsports Festival. I don't know if you have them available on screen. If not, well, I'll read them out anyway. So question 1, why is the 2024 Motorsports Festival happening on top of the Adelaide Festival and Fringe final weekend? Question 2, is there concerns around noise levels from a Motorsports Festival interfering or halting a multitude of performances and activities during the Adelaide Festival and Fringe? Question 3, is this event happening under the Motorsports Act? Events that happen under the Motorsports Act pay no parklands hire fees. Is this event paying a parklands hire fee? And 4, is it anticipated that this event will require road/footpath closures in the East End? Thank you.
I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you, and through the chair. We had sort of got partway through addressing this. I need to take that on notice and get this information circulated back to council members as quickly as possible this week to inform your deliberations. So I'll commit to providing a written answer as soon as possible.
Any further questions without notice? Okay, let's move on to motions on notice. We have one motion on notice. Councillor Noon, do you wish to speak to it? Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Snape, seconding.
I'm just going to give everyone a warning. I'm just about to get on my soapbox. This is a topic that's very close to my heart, and I might need an extra minute. On 16th of February 2021, the City of Adelaide requested an item of business to be included on the agenda of the general meeting of the Local Government Association, seeking a comprehensive state government review of mandatory rates and exemptions from payments of local government rates, and requested the preparation of an issues paper to prepare a report advocating for changes to statutory rates and rebates and exemptions. This motion was carried by the LGA members at this general meeting. At the last council meeting, 27th of June, the annual council rate rebates 23-24 report was included in our papers. I'm certain this is the usual paper that appears in our pack every year this time of year. We quickly passed it with no discussion as it is mandatory, and I was informed this paper is really just for noting. And this is correct. However, we cannot accept this situation, that this situation cannot change, or at least undergo a forensic analysis, as some of the legislation that this was based on is very old. It dates back to the 80s and hasn't been reviewed for many years. And as we all know, times have changed. Some of these institutions and organisations are much more commercial nowadays. Exemptions and rebates cost the City of Adelaide in the vicinity of $40 million per year. Exemptions alone in the fin year 23-24 year represented 22.55% of the rate base. This includes hospitals, universities, private schools, government departments, Crown land, for example, Lot 14. Many of these institutions, organisations include commercial entities, and therefore legislation needs to be amended to address this. This is not just a City of Adelaide issue, this is statewide. However, the City of Adelaide, as the capital city of South Australia, is more impacted than any other metropolitan and regional council. This is due to the City of Adelaide area occupying a significant share of Crown and university properties compared to the rest of the state. The burden on ratepayers in the City of Adelaide is much greater than those in other council areas. These same ratepayers collectively may not be the predominant users of the services provided to the ratepayer eligible for the mandated rebate or exemption. In several situations, services provided from properties eligible for a mandated rebate of rates are intended to assist a much broader community than just the local one that it is effectively funding the rebate. For example, the broader South Australian community, who are ratepayers of various LG areas, are users of city universities, hospitals and schools, to name a few.
I'm assuming you'd like an extension,
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Noon. Those in favour?
The current system puts pressure and limits council to be able to provide the critical maintenance and infrastructure services that are vital to communities, bearing in mind that these institutions are users and rely on the very infrastructure that surrounds them that the councils have to develop, repair and maintain. Through the budget processes, we spent so much time and discussion on increase of fees and services, reinstating outdoor dining fees and parkland fees for event organisers. And although this was pitched as part of the budget repair, our budget would not need this type of repair if we were receiving over the years what I believe is owed to us. The current legislation has a negative impact on council's ability to respond to our community in times of hardship, such as the times we are currently experiencing. We need to be more empowered. The current legislation is basically unfair and inequitable, and the mums and dads and the small business operators are subsidising big businesses with owners often not even living in the state or the country. In summary, all property should be rebatable, and this is cost shifting to local government without funding it. We need to demand a more equitable model that is fair for all ratepayers, a rating model that also encourages business and sustainable development. I have been assisting the Local Government Association with information to finalise this issue paper that I previously mentioned as per the motion. This paper is almost completed and will be presented to this council in the not too distant future. And although 2 years since the motion was put on the table at the LGA meeting, I applaud the LGA for progressing this to this point. I think submitting rebates and exemptions from payment of local government rates as an item to be included on the Capital City Committee agenda is one of the first steps in this council's ramping up the discussion with the state government, and I think the timing is right, and I hope my fellow councillors agree with me.
Well, the time was absolutely right. That's 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Noon. Councillor Snape, do you wish to speak?
Very briefly, because I don't think I can do justice to the passion and hard work that Councillor Noon has put into this over a substantial period of time, but also the last 5 minutes in the chamber as well. It's such great work, Councillor Noon. I commend everything that you've done with this. I think we've got to accept it as a capital city. We have a lot of institutions which we welcome and we love having here, we support them having here, but we still have to maintain the footpaths, the roadways and the facilities surrounding these institutions. So I think this is a fair ask. I realise we're not asking, we're just putting it on to an agenda for future discussion of the Capital City Committee. But the wider topic of state institutions paying their fair rate is incredibly important, and it helps take some of the burden off our residents and ratepayers who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So I can't explain to people watching how much hard work I know has gone into this behind the scenes. So I really commend it, and I encourage everyone to support it.
Any other speakers? Councillor Siebentrit.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd like to briefly speak in in favour of this. And in doing that, wanted to recognise that we have just come off the back of what have been very difficult and challenging discussions, where as an elected member body, we've been asked to look at how we balance the impacts and also the benefits of our budget and the discussions we've had around that on traders across the city and on residents. And my observation, listening to what Councillor Noon's described here and discussions on this in the past, is that there are many organisations around the city who are not paying rates, but they expect clean streets. They expect green streets. They expect safe roads to walk down, and yet they're not necessarily stumping up the cash to help pay for that. And we need an equitable approach to the way we maintain these services and our assets across the city. And for that reason, I'll be supporting this, and supporting it also noting that I understand the Lord Mayor, who's obviously not with us today, is also very supportive of this. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Councillor Davis.
I just had a question in relation, and I'd like to speak after, but in relation to the report that came to us on the discretionary rebates. I'm just looking at it and noting that the University of Adelaide has a number of properties which have been exempted or they've applied for the rate rebate where the property type has been characterised as residential. And I'm just wondering if we had any more details to what those types of properties were. Were they private houses or were they educational facilities? And I was just a little bit confused because in the actual title it says, for example, University of Adelaide, and it actually has a person's name next to it, and I was a bit confused about why that would be the case.
I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you. Through the Chair. For the first time, we stepped through every single mandatory exemption which the Council applies across the board. So that's the first time that information has been shared with the Council. I'll need to take that on notice in relation. There were quite a few attachments and pages of detail, so we're happy to follow up outside with Mr Spatalis to better understand which queries you have in relation to those.
Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just one quick question before I speak to the motion. Have previous councils engaged in conversations with previous state governments about this issue?
I think the answer is yes, but I'll ask the CEO to expand on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the Chair. Certainly, under the last term of Council, this was raised as a advocacy and opportunity with the previous state government to advocate the City of Adelaide's position through the other CEOs across local government that also have many Crown or University buildings within their footprint. A big piece of work was done across that group, and on the back of that, through the LGA, that work has now progressed to this point.
Thank you. I'll speak in support of this. I think it is absolutely right that we ask for the fair share to be paid. I can understand that certain institutions like hospitals or social housing providers might pay a different rate, but when you've got organisations that are essentially big businesses that are getting these rate rebates, I just don't think that's right. So I'll be supporting this.
Councillor Davis.
Just in relation to the way that the motion is drafted, I understand Councillor Noon is obviously against these rebates being in place. Should the motion reflect that intention that we'd be bringing the idea that we would be seeking for this to be reviewed or taken away in the motion rather than, say, I suppose, put it on the agenda? Or will we be, I suppose, giving Councillor Noon or the other representatives to the Capital City Committee the authority to represent Councillor Noon's views as she's spoken in this motion?
Well, look, may I just add that I think Councillor Noon's views are similar to those of the Lord Mayor, and the Lord Mayor leads the Council's delegation to the Capital City Committee, so my feeling is that would be mirrored in what the Lord Mayor takes to the committee.
Can I just say that once we adopt it, it's not my view, it's everybody's view. So it's the council's view. But look, I think We're going to actually have this issues paper that's actually going to be presented to us in...
Councillor Noon, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I've already spoken enough,
yes,
have
you
I?
have.
Okay.
And I was happy to hear a short response, but we can't relitigate the matter. Now, I have... Did you want to speak, Councillor Davis?
I just wanted to say, I suppose that's my issue with the motion, I suppose, because it doesn't necessarily indicate a view. And all it says is for it to be submitted. And so what my suggestion would be to the mover and seconder is that the council actually does express a view through the motion, because I'll probably give an alternative viewpoint on this particular subject when I speak. But my suggestion would be that this just goes up to the way that it's drafted, just goes to the Capital Committee. So if we could put in a view that the council doesn't accept it, then that would be helpful, I think.
Okay, I'm assuming you're asking the mover and the seconder if they wish to vary the motion. That is not the case? Okay, then Councillor Davis, if you disagree, you'll have to either amend or vote against it.
Yeah, I can't speak to it.
Are you amending?
No, I just speak to it.
So you're speaking against it?
I'm not sure, but either way, if I could take my 3 minutes. That may become clear through the course of the discussion.
It would be useful to councillors if we knew what you were going to
perhaps just entertain me and and you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, humour me. Not that I think I need to express whether I support or necessarily. I could meander. Look, I'll support the motion because the item will be taken to the Capital City Committee, but it's not necessarily my view that we should be seeking for the state government to pay for the rebates, to pay for all the schools and universities and educational facilities and also hospitals. I think it is quite a philosophical discussion. I think Councillor Siebentritt made a really good number of points, but on the other side of the coin, when we talk about, say, hospitals, for example, and I think about hospitals where I served as the director of, say, the Burnside War Memorial Hospital. That was a community hospital that provided a facility to its ratepayers. And yes, you could charge at rates that would, the value of the land is exceedingly high given its size and scale. And that would put a significant amount of pressure on that particular hospital's bottom line. And I suggest that the same would be true for all public hospitals as well. Now, essentially what we're asking to do is the state government gives us more money to look after the roads and things like that. But I would also suggest that, on the other hand, the schools that are in that particular region, one, raise the value of the properties of which they are nearby, and secondly, that the school actually offers a number of services to the community, whether it be, say, sporting facilities on the weekend or open space as well. And those open spaces, sometimes they're open for dog walking and access to the community. All of those costs are actually provided for by the state government. It seems a little bit strange that we would be talking about, I suppose, cost shifting for the state government to say, hey, why don't you pay us to maintain the roads, when really this is just another level of taxation. And our method of taxation is a pure and simple land tax based on its valuation, which is in actually quite a very fair level of taxation. So it's about where do you receive the taxation base from particular items in the state budget. And for me, they would need to increase other things like payroll tax or stamp duty or other ways of taxing our community to support the shortfall, of which I think Councillor Noon said there was about $40 million. So they'd have to raise that in some other way, and we would then simply receive it in that other way. So people would still be paying the same amount of money. Yes, the money might be received to us, but that just means that we're, I suppose, a higher taxing society, and I'm against higher taxes. So for that reason, I support it going to the Capital City Committee, but I don't share the intention of the mover. It's not in the actual... I don't think that this motion necessarily gives a mandate to those representatives in the Capital City Committee to ask for this. But I do think that taxation and the way that it sits across society is quite a complicated issue. Now, in terms of financial institutions, like large corporations that are making lots of money, then I would support that. But I think there's a nuanced debate to be had.
Thank you for your contribution. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this motion?
I'd like to address some of the... Oh, against, no.
Look, I have the impression we're all in furious agreement.
I would like to address some of the issues raised by Councillor Davis.
Councillor Giles, you may speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Look, I think people in Adelaide are actually surprised when they hear that there's a whole pile of people in our city that take up and own land that don't pay rates. And we do give rate rebates to very worthy organisations like homelessness places and women's shelters, etc., which is that's sort of like what's in people's minds in the community. They think that a exemption of rates is because of people are providing a service, a not-for-profit community service. Some of these places we're talking about are actually making quite significant profits and own a huge amount of land. I mean, University of South Australia owns almost like the top left, right-hand corner, which way are you facing? The top northwest corner of the city. Adelaide University owns a large amount of the city, and yet they don't pay rates. All this motion is doing is actually asking us to really dig into this issue, and I think it's a really great initiative of Councillor Noon to say, look, everyone's known it's been like this for a while. We want to explore it at a time when we're not being able to generate enough income from our community to do the things they want from their council without substantially increasing rates. Let's actually now have a look at who is and who isn't paying rates and see if we can come up with a system that's more equitable for everybody in the city. And I think the time has come in the corporatisation of the tertiary sector, and also at the time when people are providing incentives. I'm assuming that no rates in lot 14 is to do with incentives to get business here, but that there's a consequence to doing things like that for the rest of the community. So I think this is a great initiative because it's basically kicking off the discussion. So the Lord Mayor has written a column. Councillor Noon is proposing we raise at the City Council, the Capital City Committee. The LGA is doing a discussion paper on this issue. And also, in order for this to occur, I understand there needs to be a change in legislation. So nothing's going to happen quickly, but I think as a council, Capital City Council, we need to take the leadership in this, and that's what Councillor Noon is doing tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Councillor Elliott was signalling that he'd like a small amount of time. Is that correct?
If that's amenable to the Chair, Acting Lord Mayor. I do appreciate that there's been a very balanced discussion about this, and I appreciate Councillor Davis's very thoughtful contribution on the matter. Councillor Giles actually touched on the equity point probably a lot more eloquently than I could have done, and I think this really is just about the approaching the conversation in a mature way at looking at how we can adjust the system. And I'll be supporting this motion on the basis that it doesn't take a deliberate point of view or presuppose the outcome of any discussion that may occur at the Capital City community. It's just asking them to have that discussion, and I think we have a strong advocate in the Lord Mayor that can carry that perspective through on behalf of Council after we adopt this.
No, the only person who hasn't spoken is Councillor Lee. Did you wish to say something?
What's Councillor Davis doing?
No, I reserve my rights, but I'll be voting in favour. I do agree with I do agree with the councillor's view that it's an equitable approach to have a fair share of from the big corporations and the big institutions. I do think that it's a matter of just exploring this matter, not necessarily imposing on all of those institutions that are in exemption, but also just to explore some of the areas that might be having a more equitable approach. So I don't think it's a sweeping approach. It's just exploring and having a discussion on it.
Now, Councillor Noon, everyone agrees with you.
I just want to say...
Do you wish to sum up?
Just quickly. I just want to really emphasise the fact that this, I don't think, I'm not saying that we're going to get the $40 million back overnight or whatever. I think it is exploring, investigating, and it's backing the LGA with this issues paper that was initiated from this council 2 years ago. So at the end of the day, it's taken this long, well, 2.5 years ago actually. So at the end of the day, we will be more informed for our representatives who represent us on this committee. By the time they actually go and represent us on this committee, they will be more informed. When this issues paper is actually presented to the council, it will give them a lot more information and fill in some of those gaps that Councillor Davis has raised. Thank you.
Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? That's surprising. It's unanimous. Thank you. Now we move to motions without notice. Do we have any motions without notice? I can see two hands. Councillor Snape.
Thank you. Acting Lord Mayor, I sent a motion through just prior to the meeting in connection to the Motorsports Festival. It's up on the screen. So my motion reads... well, first I'll seek a seconder, sorry, first of all.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Noon, would you like to read that motion, Councillor?
Council asks the Lord Mayor to write to the Motorsports Board expressing Council's concern with the clash between the Adelaide Motorsports Festival and the Adelaide Festival and Fringe, and requests that the Motorsports Board change the date for its scheduled March 2024 event.
Would you like to speak to it?
Please. This came about as, well, basically this time last night, 24 hours ago, the Adelaide Motorsports Board released its dates for the 2024 event, and it is in the middle of the Adelaide Festival and on the last weekend of the Adelaide Fringe. Now, my main concern is going back to 2012. Give me 1 second. When the infamous Ennio Morricone the concert wasn't infamous. Concert was great, but the infamous timing of a motorsports race, I believe it was probably the Clipsal 500 at that time. The noise actually intruded on that festival to a point where then Premier Jay Weatherall had to intervene and phone up the organisers of the Clipsal and say, turn your engines off. We've got this world famous entertainer here. We've got all these people, trying to enjoy this event, and it's becoming a bit of a national embarrassment that the clash of these events, the noise of the motorsports of the Clipsal 500, is actually disturbing such a big event. So that was 11 years ago, and for 11 years we've managed to avoid, I think, a clash of that level, of that nature. But here we are heading full tilt towards an embarrassing repetition of this situation in March 2024, when we've got the Motorsports Festival happening now during the final, as I said, the final weekend of the Adelaide Fringe, and also during the Adelaide Festival. Now, that particular concert 11 years ago, fantastic concert, I've heard, other than that particular interruption. That was one, it was a big event, that was one event. Now, at any time during the final weekend of the Fringe, for example, we may have as many as 37 different events happening, and much closer to Victoria Park and Mount Ed as well. The earlier event I mentioned was in Elder Park. We're talking about events happening throughout the East End of the city and in our parklands. So this is I say it's a common sense motion. It's unfortunately the lack of common sense is why we have to put forward this motion. It's only asking for a letter to be wrote. That's all. I acknowledge council. It's a lot of this is outside of council's jurisdiction, but council can advocate. Council can write. Council can speak up and use its voice, and we can also do it in a timely manner. We've got 8 or 9 months to go before this happens. Let's speak up now. I say it's timely. The reason why I've moved it to motion without notice is the tickets only went out last night, so we have to move fast while we've got time to divert the train wreck that could happen. And so with that, I commend this motion to the Chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Noon, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Can I suggest that the Deputy Lord Mayor write rather than the Lord Mayor?
Well, I'm happy to write if That's required of the chamber, but it can wait, I'm assuming. Do you wish the letter to go this week, Councillor Snape?
I'm happy for the acting Lord Mayor to do so, yes.
Then I'll do so. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Well, can we just ask the acting Lord Mayor to amend the motion to put it in?
If the mover and the seconder are happy to vary it, yes? Okay, we'll add the word acting. Councillor Elliott, do you wish to speak?
Procedurally, in the absence of the Lord Mayor, wouldn't the Deputy Lord Mayor assume the duties assigned to the Lord Mayor regardless of amending this motion?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you say that again?
Sorry, in the absence of the Lord Mayor, wouldn't the Deputy Lord Mayor assume the assigned duties of the Lord Mayor regardless of the writing of this motion? So if we were to assign this to the Lord Mayor, you would take on the responsibilities regardless of whether we amend this motion or not?
Yes. But look, for the sake of clarity, I'm happy to accept this. Any other speakers? Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Deputy Lord Mayor, I've got a couple of questions, if I could, before I speak to the motion. Were we consulted prior to that date being locked in for March 2024? Did the administration receive any correspondence?
I'll ask the CEO to respond.
Thank you, through the chair. Normally the minister does write direct to me, but I can't remember seeing a letter at this point. Ilya, do you have anything further to add?
Excuse me. Thank you, and through the chair, no formal consultation, just prior an indication of what potential dates could be.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies to a degree. I'm just mindful of us going at it in such a manner. I wonder whether if we invite the Motorsport Board in for a briefing to understand their mechanics would be a better way of approaching this. I take on board what Councillor Snape said about what's happened in the past, but dare I say, surely state government has learned from its mistakes in the past, especially if it was that big and significant. The optics of this, Deputy Lord Mayor, the optics of this, the way I see it, if we start to put up barriers for events, people out there, the media, will start looking at us as NIMBYs. They'll start labelling us the sleepy town, and they'll say, don't do anything in Adelaide because it's too loud and it's too noisy, so shut your engines down, turn the volume down and go to sleep, and they'll label us the sleepy town. So that's what I'm afraid of. Let's get a briefing. Let's get these event organisers around a table. Let's have a conversation to see what their thoughts were. I'm sure they would have thought through this. So I want to get that. And to me, that would be a more collaborative approach rather than say, no, go and change the date.
Thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor Snape, I'm advised by the administration that it would be appropriate to amend it to say that the Acting Lord Mayor write to the board expressing concern because the Motorsport Board is not involved with this particular festival. Are you amenable to that change? Yep. And your seconder? Yes. Okay. Are there any other speakers? And look, I emphasise we are talking about writing a letter which will elicit a response from the board. It's nothing more than expressing an opinion to the board. Is that correct, Councillor Snape? Thank you. Councillor Siebentreut.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Abrahimzadeh here. I agree with the reasons why Councillor Snape has put this forward. I think you make an excellent point. My only query is around the last bit around changing the date for the scheduled March 2024 event. I would like us to see us have an immediate briefing, and I'd really love to understand why on earth there was no consultation. I think this is extremely poor form. Raises questions if there has been a past incident, why has this happened again? I would rather us, in addition to outlining our concerns, is a request an immediate briefing and seeking advice on whether the date can be changed.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment in that line by deleting the words
Hang on, do you have a seconder? Do you want to just explain what you're going to do?
I haven't even declared the motion. Explain what the motion is, let alone get a seconder. Yeah, I assume that there might, I might have some level of support.
Well, I don't know. But what are you proposing? What are you proposing to say?
Look, I'd be proposing, and maybe the mover and seconder will take it on board. And essentially deleting from the words and after and requests, delete that the board change the date for the scheduled March 2024 event, and replace that with and requests a briefing on the scheduled event for council.
Look, I'm advised by the administration that that's an amendment because there have been variations and therefore I require a seconder. Is anyone prepared to second Councillor Davis's amendment? In that case, it lapses. No? Councillor Elliott is prepared to support it. Councillor Davis, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you. I do think that a little bit softly on this particular issue might be a good approach, as some other councillors has mentioned. I obviously think that it's going to be extremely loud and it will impact on the fringe. And I think that at the end of it, we will ask them to change it. However, I think that if we invite them in to discuss it, to look at what mitigation strategy has been put in place, that might be a better way to get an outcome for our residents. And so I think this way, win-win. And then if they say no, then we'll get them. But until then, I think a more diplomatic approach might be appropriate.
Councillor Davis, the briefing, it's not clear whether we're asking for a briefing from the festival, the Adelaide Festival, the Motorsport Festival, or the Fringe.
We would say request a briefing from the board.
Which board?
The board.
From the Okay. Is your seconder happy with that variation, Councillor Elliott?
Yes, Acting Lord Mayor.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak to this? Okay. Yes, the administration seems to be clear on the intent. Therefore, I will ask the mover if he wishes to sum up. Therefore, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. That becomes the substantive, and that needs to go to a vote also. Those in favour? That's carried also. Now, I notice there are two other motions without notice. Councillor Elliott, would you like to speak to yours? Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Acting Lord Mayor. Councillor Noon has agreed to second the motion.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I would, very briefly. I have circulated it at 3:30 p.m, so I would hope that most members have had an opportunity to read it.
Have all members had a chance to read that?
I'm happy to pause for a moment. If
could you
like.
read it out, or ask Theo to read it out?
I'll take it as read because there are a few components, but I'm happy to pause a moment before speaking if that's
I think that's satisfactory, Councillor Davis.
I was just going to say, I know that there's a number of people online who probably wouldn't have seen this particular motion, and it might assist them to understand what's going on.
Sure, please, I'll take your direction.
I'm happy for elected members who are voting on this to read it. As much as I respect our viewers, the meeting is for elected members, and so if you're able to read that, we will then proceed. Just a moment, Councillor Elliott.
I'll take my seat for the moment, Acting Lord
No,
Mayor.
it's okay. You can now speak.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very gracious, Acting Lord Mayor. As I did advise, I did circulate it earlier this afternoon, so I am aware that was not a great deal of notice, but I guess that is the theme of motions without notice. But I did my best. However, with this motion, the substantive parts are point 3 and point 4. Point 1 and point 2 are for noting only, just to provide some context of why I believe this motion is important. But I believe it's important to be proactive about the effects, both real and perceived, on the city retailers during the Fringe and other festivals where we experience increased visitation and demand for hospitality services, but not always for retail. This motion recognises that that our city retailers and daytime economy are integral to the experience of living in and visiting the city. It also recognises that the retailers need specific and deliberate efforts to support them where visitors may choose to spend their money in other places and venues or services. This motion asks Council to expand the existing East End Unleashed support program to consult with and engage and support daytime retailers and improve the experience of visiting our city shops during festivals. Bustling streets, I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. Bustling streets, festivals, hospitality venues and shops. Finally, actively promoting public and active transport options to the city can help people understand their options, because we know when people know about and are confident about accessing the city by those modes, they choose to do so. Therefore, I commend the motion to the floor, and I thank Councillor Noon for her support in consulting with and supporting East End retailers.
Councillor Noon, did you wish to speak?
I need to say that I totally support this, and it supports a lot of discussions I've had down at the East End with retailers and residents. And I commend Councillor Elliott for putting this forward.
Are there any councillors who wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I do have one issue, is just the urgency of it. So my understanding is that happens during the Fringe time. And in my view, Your Worship, or Your Deputy Lord Worship, Deputy Lord Mayor should not have allowed the motion to go. It should be on the agenda, and I think it's an excellent motion, one that I'll support, but I don't think the urgency should have allowed it to come. I do think that the Local Government Act sets out that we should be able to inform our community before we're debating these issues, and unless something truly is urgent, such as Councillor Snape's motion, I don't think it should be allowed as a motion on without notice.
That issue was considered, and I decided to accept it. There is no expense involved in the matter, and I think the mover believes it's sufficiently urgent to be presented to the meeting tonight.
I'm happy to provide a brief justification if the Chair is amenable and the member would like one. I did believe that this had an air of urgency to it. We were only made aware of proposals to close Rundle Road, which has been raised as a matter of concern for many members of the business community in the East End, and what those effects may or may not be. And we have only had a very small amount of time to digest the limited briefing material we've already had so far. The urgency comes out of that only just having happened, but curated support programs like East End Unleashed and the Fringe happen months and months in advance. You can guarantee that Fringe is already planning 2025. So the processes that run in the background with Council for East End Unleashed operate on a similar timeline, and I do think that we need to try and do our best to progress this as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that explanation, Councillor Elliott. Does anyone wish to speak further? No? Okay. Do we wish to sum up?
No, I've spoken quite enough. Thank you, Acting Lord.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we have one more motion without notice, and it's from Councillor Giles. Councillor Giles, do you have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Noon will second this motion.
Our serial seconder tonight. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Giles?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm bringing this motion as a motion without notice because there is a strict time frame on this, because 50% of this project is funded by the state government, and we need to sort it out because there may be a danger of losing that funding because it's time bound. Look, ever since I've been involved in council and prior to that, there has been a concern of the residents who live in Pitt Street in the city about what is going to happen to their street as part of the fantastic project which is trying to build a beautiful corridor from the river to the market, which will create amenity for pedestrians and a very pleasant way of seeing our city and moving from one precinct to another, which has been going on for as long as I can remember, actually. It goes from Bank Street through Lee Street, Bentham Street, and the final bit is Pitt Street. Now, look, the latest proposal for this development is that it not be a one-way street, and yet everyone I've spoken to in that precinct, in that little area, wants it to be a one-way street because they can't see how you can build that sort of environment without it being one way. And there are a number of other issues. So what I'm asking for is a briefing, because there's a lot of information. We haven't been briefed on this before, and we need to understand the situation and work out whether or not we can do things to make it a one-way street so that it's got strong amenity for the community and for the pedestrians. And some of the community there are the people that live in New City, and New City is a residential development put up by United Communities, which has got brilliant accommodation for people with disabilities and also provides aged care as well. So, not aged care, I beg your pardon, the people who live at U City, retirement village type accommodation. So you've got older people, people with disabilities. The people that say in the community consultation that they support it being one way are Metro Hotel, United Communities, Central Market, the Department of Infrastructure and Transport, Pitt Street Cafe, Infinity Care Solutions and Reconciliation SA, and also Her Majesty's Theatre and Anderson Lawyers are not opposed to it. There's only one organisation that's opposed to it being one way, and that's a multi-storey car park that's on the corner called Care Park. I just don't understand why we would support changing a proposal that's been dreamed of for many years to provide that beautiful pathway because one person, one organisation is opposed to it when everybody else thinks it's a good idea. And the other thing that I think is very important that we do as council, sorry, I just need one more minute. The other thing that I think that we've got to think about is stop thinking about streets as streets, because the idea of this whole project was to create this pathway, but now we've got U City is got around 100 residents or apartments. Victoria Towers is in the process of being built, which will have people in it. We've got the market development, which will have people in it, and the bus depot as well. So this will be a massively increased population area of the city, and we need to create spaces where people feel very safe and comfortable to walk around, and having a skinny little two-way road connecting Groton Goodger Street in that particularly highly popularised area, I think is a mistake. But I'm not willing to put up a motion about that yet, because I think we need a proper briefing about it and seeing what's possible in terms of giving people what they basically said they want.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. I might just note for members that there have been extensive briefings on Pitt Street in the 2014-18 Council and the 2018-22, but this Council has not had a briefing. And the CEO assures me that if this motion is successful, there will be a briefing next week at the Council Infrastructure Committee. Does anyone wish to speak further? Councillor Noon.
I really support this because I've been inundated with stakeholders, residents of U City, comments and questions about this development or this street and what's happening. And I've spoken to the CEO and I've spoken to Mr McCready, and there's, compelling arguments around all of this. So I'm a big one to get people together around a table, similar to the motion we just put up about the motorsports. Just getting people around the table and discussing and coming to a compromise can be very powerful. And I actually think that we miss these opportunities quite often, and this is what we're asking here, to do that and to be better informed so we can make better informed decisions. Thank you.
Look, I think I see around the room nodding heads. Am I able to put this motion to a vote? Yes? Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any further motions without notice? Excellent. All right, let's move on to the next thing, which is an exclusion order. And I'd like to move that in block, items 18.1 and 19.1. Can I have a mover? Councillor Siebentritt, seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Those in favour? That's carried. And I might now ask members of the gallery and the media who are present while we open the doors so that we can close the meeting. If you leave your chairs, the quorum collapses and I'll have to ask you all back. Okay, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.